Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast. No UFC this week, but not a problem because the Ground and Pound Podcast has got you covered as always with the first round in the PFL World Tournament. And I'm joined, as always, not by Denzel Washington, although he does replicate the smooth sounding voice of Denzel. I'm with Carlos. What's up, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And as always, the Ground and Pound Podcast has got you covered with the PFL coverage. And obviously, I know a lot of you are going to be disappointed by no UFC, but we're going to start off with the early prelims for the PFL, work our way to all the way through to the main card, and give you our picks, predictions, and analysis, a little bit of betting insight. And Carlos, are you ready to get into the picks?
Let's do it.
Let's get it. So first up, we have Robert Watley taking on Tony Caruso. And I got to just let you guys know, this one just got added very, very recently, but we're on top of it. And Carlos, you're going to break it down all for us first. So let us know who you got in this matchup.
In this matchup, I picked Robert Watley. Tony Caruso, from what I've seen video-wise, he seems pretty decent on the feet, enough to not really be outmatched, and slick enough to avoid a few punches. If you pressure him, might be otherwise. He doesn't really have the threat of the takedown. I didn't see a lot of wrestling. What I did see was if he gets you up against the cage, he could probably, get a trip, pull your leg out from under you, whatever. He doesn't really look like he goes to get both hands under the hips and pull you out. So he's not that kind of guy. He's not going to be physical like that. But that being said, I don't feel that he's going to be able to take Watley down. Watley's a little bit more of the physical of the two. If he had some wrestling, now would be a good time to use it because I feel Watley is going to keep the fight on the feet, or going to try to at least. He is also very well versed on the ground as well, but I do feel that that's where he wants to keep it, and he wants to, unleash some heavy firepower because out of the two, I think he's the heavier hitter. He does like to keep pressure on you, and if you do get hurt, he's not just going to ground and pound you. He's also going to look to possibly get you from his submissions, looks for a guillotine, looks to take you back. I don't think Caruso has enough pop to get the respect of Watley to keep him off. So, with that said, Robert Watley's the pick. Haven't seen a lot of video on him, but that's the guy to take. I think he's just going to be a little bit more physical than Mr. Caruso.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think that's pretty much Tony's game plan, and this is going to look to get the fight to the floor. I see the same as you. I don't think he's going to be able to. And one thing I will say as well is Robert was obviously supposed to fight, I believe it was a Gutucio, or I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but the Mexican gentleman. And obviously Tony coming in on a couple of days' notice. It's pretty difficult, 34 years old, not necessarily fought the highest level of competition to step up and fight a guy in Robert who was obviously supposed to fight on the card originally against a different opponent. So you have to think Robert's going to be very well prepared for this particular matchup, even if it is against a grappler. As Carlos mentioned as well, the more physical of the two. So two picks here for Robert Watley. And don't get me wrong, 35 years old and 34 years old. So older in terms of MMA. You never know when someone could fall off a cliff, but you have to think with a full training cap, Robert Watley's probably going to be the pick here for both of us. And not necessarily the most confident, but you believe he's probably going to get it done in this particular matchup. And next up, one we didn't have to scramble to do, but we had Aaron Jefferies taking on Murad Ramazanov. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup?
In this matchup, I went with Murad Ramazanov. Interestingly enough, I guess a lot of his fights are at 170, so he is moving up to 185 for this one as well.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't think he's going to have too much of an issue with Jefferies is on the feet, he looks very awkward. Okay. He did throw heavy in the fights that I did see, but that was just to keep guys off him. So it was like he was throwing to create space. I expect him to probably try to get him up against the cage and take him down. I also expect that he will actually shoot while you're in the middle of the ring. Once he gets him down, like he's got that Dagestani wrestling blood in him, and I believe he's going to have good top control because that's how he is in most of his fights. Aaron Jefferies, I've seen fight numerous times. I like the guy. I like how he has his work rate. I'm a little bit more leaning towards strikers. I find it to be a little bit more fun. I love heavy wrestling with ground and pound. Aaron does bring that as well, but doesn't really bring the heavy wrestling. He likes to keep it on the feet too. That and like trying to keep that on the feet is going to be the problem. His takedown defense is okay. He doesn't have a problem getting back up if he's against the cage. If he's not, I'm not sure exactly how he's going to do against Ramazanov, but ultimately, I feel that this fight, although Aaron wants to keep it on the feet, I think Murad's going to get him down. He's going to be able to control him. Might just be a decision, but he's got a lot of submission victories, does Murad, and he has had a lot of submission victories against very big 175 pounders. So I think Aaron Jefferies being, having the height and size advantage, I think he's going to be able to control him with no problem.
Yeah, same here for me. I've gone with Murad as well. 2 picks for Murad. The biggest thing I'll say about this particular matchup that I think is really going to serve Murad well is the fact that, as Carlos mentioned, he was originally fighting at 170 and now fighting at 185. He is a very thick individual, not to be mistaken for Vanessa, what's her name, Norma Dumont thickness, but the kind of thickness that I think he's going to struggle to cut weight. And I think that's probably been his biggest issue. With Murad, I think the biggest thing for him is when you watch him fight, he kind of fights in explosions. So what he'd like to do is obviously that Dagestani style, wrestle heavy. But the problem is his energy kind of, allows him not to be able to do that. So I think the move up to 185 in this particular tournament is going to serve him well. And the way that I'd explain it is if you've ever played a video game and, the power bar or the stamina bar has to kind of be loaded up in order to do something, that's kind of how Murad fights. He's basically in a scenario where he can't fight all out because his cardio won't allow him to. So when he has to shoot, he has to kind of save up his energy first. And the thing I notice about Aaron Jeffrey is he looks to clinch up against the fence and he likes to mix in his wrestling. He can strike, but I just don't think his wrestling's going to be able to be mixed in here against Murad. So I think that he's going to run out of luck if he tries to mix in his grappling. He's going to get out grappled. I think that he's the weaker gentleman in the two. Out of the two, I think Murad is going to be the much stronger individual. When it comes to the striking, I do give Jeffrey the cleaner striking, but not necessarily the biggest pop. He doesn't necessarily either go to the body, which I think he should against a guy like Murad. But I just think that the fact that he was fighting at 170 was kind of his problem. He was kind of slow, and the stamina issues that he had. I think the 185 is going to be a big factor here for him. And even though Jefferies trains out of Niagara Top Team, which is a decent gym, you have to think he's going to come in here with a great game plan. I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to keep the Russian off of him. I think Murad's going to get takedowns whenever he wants. And also as well, I know that some people are going to look at this matchup and say, well, Murad had 2 losses against Musiev, who currently is the PFL champion. He lost both times against him. They're his 2 losses. And honestly, he's one of the more impressive fighters that I've seen, not just in the PFL, but overall. So no shame in losing to Musiev. So yeah, 2 picks for Murad here. I think he gets back in the win column. I think that the weight's going to help him here. And I don't really think that Jeffrey has an answer for the wrestling in this particular matchup. So 2 picks for Murad. And next we have Brent Primus taking on Vinicus Cenci. And I'm going to pass this one to Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup, Carlos?
I got Brent Primus. What do you know how what is it called? How late the substitution is?
It's about a week or a little bit less than a week.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'm thinking is this would have to be a striking affair. Is what Brent Primus is going to have to make this matchup. He's always mixing it up on the feet with takedowns. Primus is one of those guys. He's pretty complete. I mean, he may not do everything great. He does have good grappling. I mean, he's beaten guys like let's see, to name one, like Jake Shields in an all grappling tournament. So he's no slouch on the ground. Vinicus Cenci, he's got some good grappling from what I've seen, and he wants to get to the ground. The problem is how to take it to the ground. Is his stand up doesn't look very solid. He actually, I mean, for a regional scene type fighter, he seems like he needs to do a little bit more before he moves up a level like this, and he just doesn't look as complete. So his takedowns aren't going to be very solid. I don't see him causing any issues in the strike, and even though Brett is not the best on the feet, he can avoid his shots. I don't think this kid carries the pop to make him back off. Uh, but when it comes to grappling, I feel like Primus probably is going to match him because I think Cenci, most of his um, wins came by submission. So in total, Brett Primus, I think he can beat him anywhere, and that's my pick.
Yeah, so 2 for Brent Primus here. He's one of my more confident picks on here. I think that he probably gets the finish on the ground, whether that's ground and pound or submission. But just to give you a little bit of short notice replacement for Alexander Shobley. That's who Brent Primus was supposed to fight. And you have to think that Brent Primus is going to be prepared for a wrestle heavy game plan, boxing style for Shobley. And I just believe in this particular matchup that Cincy, I just don't see what he's going to be able to bring. Like Carlos said, he wants to look to get fights to the ground, but he's not going to be able to in this particular matchup. Brent Primus, even though he's turned the stellar age of 40, still looks like he's chiseled out of fucking granite. The guy comes in shape, heavy wrestling, heavy top pressure, looks to get fights to the ground and beats people up on the ground and ultimately gets submissions. And I do think as well, Brent Primus with his veteran experience here, I think that he's going to make this one look kind of easy. I think that this is going to be a stylistic matchup that he's going to be able to benefit from here. Cenci, I did actually watch a little bit of tape on him. He's got 2 submission losses, one of which has come against Sam Patterson, who we're familiar with in the UFC. Which was on Contender Series. Now, obviously, if you have a loss to Sam Patterson, that's not necessarily the best loss to have on your actual record because of the kind of the iffy sort of stop-start career that Sam Patterson's had, not just in the UFC, but overall in MMA. It's not necessarily a good loss to have, and I think that Brent Primus, to be honest with you, is much tougher on the ground than somebody like Sam Patterson. So if you're getting subbed by Sam Patterson, I think you're going to have trouble with Brent Primus on the ground. And I did also note as well that Cincinnati trains out of King's MMA, so training with the likes of Burnell Dariush, Marvin Vittori, Calvin Gaslam. So they're good friends. They're training partners that he's obviously got. So he could come in here much improved after not seeing him fight a whole lot. But I think the stage is going to be too bright, especially on short notice. I like Brent Primus here. I like him to get it done by finish. And obviously 40 years old, not somebody that I'm looking to bet very heavily, but I do think he should be a huge favorite in this particular matchup. I think he gets it done fairly easily in this matchup, maybe round 1. And then brings us to the next matchup of Josh Silvera taking on Mike Shipman. And just have to be mentioned that Josh Silvera is fighting at middleweight after having a run over at light heavyweight. So that just have to be sort of taken into consideration. And I'm going to pass this one over to Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup, Carlos?
I ended up going with Josh Silvera. Shipman is, he's a pretty big 155. He's pretty heavily muscled and pretty strong for the weight class. He's usually able to overpower and I guess in a way bully some of his opponents. Against Fabian Edwards, he's had issues because, Fabian, although he's not the best wrestler, his takedown defense is pretty solid. And once he separates, he'll start to punish you on the feet. He's not very offensive. He doesn't come forward, does Fabian, but the fact that he backs up and Shipman has to bring the fight to him, that's where he had a lot of issues. And I feel that Silvera's probably going to give him the same problem. The only thing that I have is an issue is the gas tank. Like, is he coming down in weight too low, at 32? There's nothing wrong. 32 is not old. It's times like if you were 205, you don't know if the guy's body is ready to change, to go lower as you get older. So that's the one thing that I'm not too sure about. I do feel that the size of Silvera is probably going to make some of Shipman's takedowns moot. And on the feet, Silvera actually likes to be the aggressor. He does pressure, but sometimes he's never really like pumping a jab. He just kind of comes forward and throws hands. And throws some kicks randomly. There's really no rhythm to his offense on the feet. He just throws and hopes that it lands. And, you know, I say that because he's actually fought some skilled guys that make him look like that. But ultimately, he's a skilled fighter. He knows where to find the openings. He knows where to create them. I feel that his size is going to make it a lot harder for Shipman to impose himself. And that's why I'm taking Silvera, the son of Conan Silvera, the genius over at American Top Team.
Yeah, I actually, I'm going to disagree a little bit here. I'm actually going to go with Mike Shipman. And I was looking at the odds for this one, and Mike Shipman's actually like a 2-1 underdog, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I've never been that high on Josh Silvera. As Carlos mentioned, obviously the son of is he the owner or is he the coach of American Top Team?
He's a coach, yeah.
Coach, yeah. So maybe a little bit of a, favorable fighter that he's been able to get over there and train over there in American Top Team. Some dad love that he's been able to get in there. But former Division I wrestler at Arizona State, so obviously credentialed in the grappling. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, that he's moving from light heavyweight down to middleweight. I like his kicks. He has pretty nice kicks for a fairly big guy at range. But the thing that I don't like about his game primarily is that he tends to slow down a little bit in fights because he's kind of a finisher. So if he's unable to finish you, then he tends to slow down a little bit and he tends to lose decisions. So that to me is a bad stylistic matchup for a guy like Mike Shipman, purely because Mike Shipman, he's very, very big for middleweight, as Carlos mentioned earlier, very big for the weight class, very physically strong, trains over at London Shoot Fighters with guys like MVP, and don't get me wrong, he's nothing like MVP, but they've been a very legendary gym over in London that they've had credentialed fighters fight out of. Good grappling, good wrestling over there. And I think that he's going to be able to not only land strikes on the feet, but I think he's going to be able to mix in grappling here. I don't necessarily think that Silvera's size is going to be a factor. So a little bit of disagreement there with Carlos. And to me, one of the main factors that I really liked watching with Mike Shipman is when I watch him on tape, he likes to throw knees up the middle. And I think that's going to be good because we know that Silvera is going to look to try to time double legs and single legs and shoot him for takedowns. And I could see Mike landing a knee up the middle, maybe stunning Josh as he tries to come in. And to be honest with you, I just think the odds are completely off. I've never been that high on Josh Silvera. He has had a tough run in light heavyweight, so he has fought some high-level guys and lost, so no shame in losing to guys like Impa Kasanganay, former champ, and things like that. But I just feel like Shipman's going to catch him a little bit off guard. 17-4, mostly finishes on the feet and on the ground. So he can get it done everywhere. So I'm actually going to take Shipman here to get it done in a little bit of an upset. He doesn't necessarily have the cleanest striking. I think Silvera's striking is a little bit cleaner, but I just think Shipman can make it a dogfight. And I think if Silvera's cutting a little bit too much weight, he might get tired. And I just trust Shipman's durability and his chin a little bit more. And I think that he can kind of sneak out a little bit of a decision here. So a little bit of dissension on the Ground and Pound podcast between me and Carlos here, but go with who you feel in your heart, betters. And next up, we have Alfie Davis taking on Clay Colliard, and I'm going to kick this one off. And I've been a little bit of a Clay Colliard fan, to be honest, since he's been in the PFL. I don't know what it is about his style. He's very, very much a pressure boxer style, throws the occasional low kick, really likes to let his hands go. You won't see him throw a lot of head kicks or anything like that, but constantly moving forward. He's never in a boring fight. He tends to struggle more with wrestlers in MMA, as obviously he's got a credentialed boxing background. Wrestlers tend to come in and take him down to the ground. He's worked on his takedown defense, but ultimately that's the kind of thing that's cost him over in MMA and in the PFL. But I like his style in this particular matchup against Alfie Davis. And the reason being is Alfie Davis is very much sort of that kind of point karate style striker. He likes to be at range. He likes to throw kicks from the outside, kind of bouncing in and out, kind of like how MVP does, hands low, and just that kind of bouncing on his toes style. And the thing with that particular style is if you kind of corral the kicker, you put pressure on him forward and you kind of get in boxing range and let your hands go. Alfie Davis seems to have a lot of problems with that particular style of matchup, and that is, funny enough, exactly what Clay Colliard's game plan is. That's exactly what his style is. I really like Clay Colliard in this matchup. One thing I will say that kind of has me a little bit cause for concern is Clay Colliard has been on a little bit of a decline recently. He's had some tough losses. They have been against some of the higher level opponents in the PFL, so not necessarily the worst losses in the world. I don't necessarily think that Alfie Davis is going to have the wrestling to keep Collier down. He can mix in takedowns, but I believe kind of this is one that Clay Collier should win with his style. Alfie Davis is a great fighter. He does have submissions. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to pull off an upset here. But I like Clay Collier in this matchup. I think this is a great stylistic matchup for him here. I'm picking him here in a reasonably confident pick for Clay Collier. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
I'm going to say pretty confidently I'm taking Clay Collier for the exact same reason you did. Alfie Davis needs room to be able to operate. He needs to keep you at about kicking range. And his kicking range can vary because, the Axeman, he's got that axe kick that is a highlighted finish. But the problem is you can't land that on everyone. His kicks are beautiful. He's got some head kick finishes as well against lower level guys. When pressured, those kicks are now off the table, and now he's got to grapple. Now he can grapple, and a lot of times he engages the grappling when you get inside boxing range. I don't feel that he's going to be able to control Collier like that to be able to get him down. I also feel that even on the ground, Collier's not a slouch down there either. He's going to be able to get back up. And, Collier uses his jab very well to pressure, but he also likes to throw that lead leg kick. It might keep Alfie a little honest. He's got to keep that lead leg light and ready to move. He likes to have a wide stance as well. So it all depends on exactly what Collier shows up. You know what I mean? I feel that Clay always shows up to fight. He always shows ready to mix it up, and I feel like it's going to be very one-sided. Davis is a guy that needs space to look nice, and I feel he's just going to fill that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I noticed on tape as well with Alfie Davis that when he kind of lets his hands go, when people do get into boxing range, that he kind of just wings punches, from funny angles. So obviously he's liable to land, but it is not technical with the hands. It is pretty technical with the feet, like Carlos mentioned with the axe kicks. But when he lets them hands go, it is he just wings punches. So I think a guy like Clay Collier with his boxing style, I think he's going to have a lot of success letting the hands go. And next up, we have Mads Brunel taking on J.J. Wilson. And I got to let people know, if you haven't seen J.J. Wilson fight, this kid is game. I really like this guy. I enjoyed watching tape study for this particular breakdown. And if you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like and subscribe button, because J.J. Wilson is the kind of fighter that would want you to hit the like and subscribe button. He wants to put on a show. The only loss that he has so far in his career is Gadzi Rabadanov. I'm probably butchering that name, but you're going to see him later on in the card where I'll butcher his name again. But creditable loss against the Dagestani. He put up a good fight in that. He had a good showing in that particular fight. He likes to throw spinning attacks. He's very, very active off of his back with long legs and long limbs, with submissions. He always comes forward. He's always in a fight. And what I do like as well is being from New Zealand, he likes to do the haka before fights, which is a ancient war dance, which basically is kind of in their heritage over there in New Zealand, which is always cool. Sticking the tongue out and doing the dance before the fights. It's pretty common in rugby as well. But like I said, this kid is very game. He's always down for a fight. And I think he's got a very, very liable dance partner here in Mads Brunel. I think Mads Brunel is somebody that we've been quite familiar with over in Bellator, and somebody that we've seen now in the PFL, but loves to come forward, rolls with punches very well, always moving forward, always throwing in combinations. And he's somebody that if you just want a firefight, Mads Brunel is always live for a firefight. He's a willing dance partner. Trains out of Extreme Couture. I read as well that he's a former no-gi European BJJ champion, but you don't tend to see too much of that because he doesn't necessarily possess the wrestling to hold people down and kind of implement his grappling style. And I think that Mads Brunel, honestly, I just think he likes to get into firefights. I think he wants entertaining fights at this point in his career. But I'm actually going to pick J.J. Wilson here. I like his upside. I like his youth. I like the way that he approaches fights. And to be honest with you, when I was watching him fight against Gadzi, I was pretty impressed, honestly. He was getting the better of him on the feet. He was landing good shots. And I just feel like with Brunel, I think that he's more of a volume puncher than a finisher. So I'm going to go with JJ here to get it done. I've been pretty impressed with him this week watching him on tape. And I think, honestly, this is probably going to be the best fight on the card. So if you're a neutral and you just want to see a fun fight, I'd have this one circled. I think this one's going to be a good one. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
I also went with JJ Wilson. Fights I saw of him, he was very aggressive on the feet. even when it went to the ground, he was actually pretty aggressive with his submissions as well. So he's dangerous both places. He can get back to his feet. He's got decent wrestling defensively. He can get back. He is very aggressive. He comes forward with bad intentions when he's swinging. And like you had previously said about Mads Burnell, Burnell is he's very good on the feet, actually. Defensively, when he's focused, he's very sound. But then when he gets sloppy, he likes to get in a little bit of a war. And the problem is like, it's not that he can't, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have the power. I don't think he doesn't have the power. He just never puts everything into those shots. He'd rather land and get back defensively than, wing a punch and, leave himself wide open, which is fine. But I think in the judge's eyes, if it goes that far, I think JJ will actually get the better of it because it'll look like he's throwing with bad intentions. Burnell, he's supposed to be good on the ground. Like you said, he likes to be in a firefight, but he can, overpower you on the ground. He's got very tremendous skill. I do believe in JJ. If it gets to the ground, he's probably not going to be intimidated by it. He looks very solid. He scrambles very well, and that's my pick for this matchup.
Yep, 2 for JJ Wilson. And like I said, if you're looking for a fight this weekend that you want to tune in for an absolute banger, I would circle this one. I think this is going to be a good one. And next up, we have Sadibou taking on Dalton Rosta. And I gotta start this one off. I've been a big fan of Sadibou since I see him in the PFL. Swedish national champion in Muay Thai and kickboxing, former PFL champion back in 2022, and has a huge reach for the division, 80-inch reach. So obviously, you know exactly what people like to do with him. They come in, they look to wrestle, they look to get him to the ground. And he's also famous in the PFL for having the fastest KO in the PFL welterweight history of 17 seconds. So impressive striker, looks really, really good on the feet, and he likes to be at range. He has fantastic kicks. I remember, I want to say Andrew Sanchez, but I could be wrong. He had a spinning wheel kick knockout of, I believe it was Andrew Sanchez, in one of his more recent fights, which was pretty impressive too. So great striker, very, very nice takedown defense, and even at 38 years old, he still looks impressive, in great shape. And in his last couple of fights, I believe he went up to light heavyweight, didn't have too much success there, got an injured thumb, I believe, which was a kind of a shitty way to end one of his last previous fights. But ultimately now moving to middleweight, back down to middleweight to take on Dalton Rosta. And Dalton Rosta is training out of American Top Team. And if you haven't seen this guy fight, or you haven't seen his picture on Tapology, this guy is a physical specimen. This guy is shredded to the bone, very, very sort of muscly sort of build. And he does tend to slow down a little bit in fights, but he can push a decent 3-round pace for a guy that's pretty, physically dominant in terms of his physique. And I don't necessarily think that he's the most skilled fighter in the world. I think he's a very good athlete, but he tends to muscle positions. And I think, to be honest with you, in this matchup, if he corrals up against Sadibou here and tries to get him to the cage, much better wrestlers than guys like Dalton have struggled to be able to get C to the ground. So I think that's what's really going to be the biggest implementation in this game is if Dalton can't get this fight to the ground and physically drag C to the ground, which I don't think he will. I think C is going to be able to light him up on the feet. I think that he's going to be able to chew up the calf. I think he's going to be able to kick at range. And the thing with Dalton as well is that he can strike, but he tends to wing punches to get into the clinch. He's not necessarily the most technical. And I think this is a big step up in competition for him here. So I'm going with Sadibou to get it done in this first round matchup against the youngster in Dalton Rosta. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
I am also taking C in this matchup, Mr. Sadibou. Dalton looks good in his fights. He's, I love the aggression. But with him, it's a little bit more blind aggression because he doesn't really know how to set anything up, how to get in. Even if he wants to take you down, he has no means to get in there without just bull rushing his way in, which is, it's going to leave an opening for Sadibou to catch him with a knee, something, flying knee, kick, elbow, punch, anything. And not that that's going to end the fight. I do think that Dalton is a pretty rugged guy. He's very strong. But I just see that C has probably fought the better competition. And I thought that, maybe he, out of the two, yes, he has more, how do I say it? He has more accuracy. So his punches are probably right on the button, whereas Rosta is actually a little wilder and a little looping. and he's throwing it, but they're kind of like Hail Marys, So hopefully he can straighten them out, land, and turn this into a war. I don't see that happening that night. I'm taking C.
2 for Sadibou C to get it done this weekend. Oh, so I say Friday, not this weekend. And that brings us to Marc diakiese taking on Gadzi Rabadanov. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup?
Well, Diakiese's got tons of talent. The problem is he can be controlled on the ground at times. And I feel that I'm going to try this one too. Rabadanov.
Yeah.
I think he's going to take him down, and he's going to control him. Diakiese does have moments where he's able to get back up. He does have moments like that, but throughout those matches, when he's going against high level grapplers, he does get gassed, and that's going to play a factor as well. So if he can't get to his feet, he's going to have to create space and at least open up as much as he can to try to get the finish. Gadzi, though, he does have pretty good stand up, and I feel it's good enough to create the openings that he needs to be able to take Diakiese down. Is he good enough to stay on the feet and fight with him? I feel that he's just good enough to be able to do that. He throws everything with good technique. He's got good, solid pop on it. And mostly everything he does standing up doesn't necessarily have to go to the ground. So Diakiese's he's going to have his hands full, but mostly if he starts to get the better of him, that's where the problem is going to start, because I feel that Rabadanov is probably just going to take him to the ground. Yeah, I don't really see anything happening besides Diakiese landing like a flying knee out of nowhere or landing a punch that ends the night. And Rabadanov, yeah, you can do that. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, 2 for Rabadanov here as well. I think Marc diakiese, I just feel like with him, he turned striker, turned wrestler, and I think he's got away from his striking a little bit, and I think that his wrestling's not going to be good enough here, taking on Rabadanov, the Dagestani style wrestler, and as Carlos mentioned as well, he has good striking as well, and I think he's probably going to be the better striker out of the two, and very much a combat sambo style, very, very well-rounded, good cardio, good timing on his takedowns, and in my opinion, I'm just going to mark it right here before we get into the next round. He's my favorite to win the tournament outright. I think he's probably going to be the winner this year. Diakiese trains out a great British top team with guys like Alfie Davis, obviously, so we see him on the card, obviously one of his main training partners probably for this camp. And I just wanted to add as well, Marc diakiese didn't get cut from the UFC. He actually left on his own accord because of contract issues. He had a better offer from the PFL, so he decided to take it. And the PFL decided to thank him by giving him probably or arguably their toughest matchup in Rabadanov. So see how long he's in the PFL and in this tournament this week. But yeah, I don't really have too much to add. I agree with everything that Carlos said. I'm going with Rabadanov here to get it done. I think he'll mix in the wrestling. I think he can have success in the striking. And I just think overall this is a bad matchup for him. So going with Rabadanov, fairly confident this week to get it done. And that brings us to the main event, people. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button for all the PFL content over here on the GroundNPound Podcast. And that brings us to the main event of Impa Kasanganay taking on Fabian Edwards, I believe it's the younger brother or the older brother of Fabian Edwards. But either way, very similar fighting style between the two Edwards brothers. Edwards himself, very, very good at, cage defense when it comes to takedowns. People always look to take Fabian Edwards down to the ground. Pretty much a southpaw kickboxer. He likes to be at range, but the one criticism I have of Edwards is sometimes when he does get in the clinch and people do try to take him down, he likes to do sometimes what his brother likes to do, which is to show them that, he has also got wrestling. So when people pummel on him or he'll get an underhook, he'll reverse position. Instead of breaking away and get into space and try to actually keep it at striking distance, he'll get back in the clinch. He'll try and get a trip takedown or a body lock or get a takedown himself, which I don't really like because he usually ends up getting swept or, he kind of just engages in the clinch, whereas I think he could have a lot more success in the striking. And what can be said about Impa Kasanganay? I mean, Impa Kasanganay, for those people that aren't aware, was the 2023 PFL light heavyweight champion. And before that, was a little bit of a sob story, really, because he got virally knocked out in the UFC by Joaquin Buckley. People, he kind of, I don't want to say made fun of him, but he, his career was kind of in a bad spot. I believe he was homeless at one point. He was able to come all the way through the PFL, get signed, win the $1 million prize, and become the champ. And he was also in the finals last year as well. So complete 180 of his career, complete success story. He's a great striker, likes to mix in the wrestling, very physically strong. He was a little bit undersized at light heavyweight. But I think in this matchup, I think he's going to struggle to get Edwards to the ground. I think he likes to be able to get people in the clinch and be able to get takedowns. I don't see him doing that against Edwards. I think if this is a mostly striking affair, I like Edwards to stand up a little bit more. And I'm going to pick Fabian Edwards here to get it done. But one thing I will say is I think if Edwards spend too much time in the clinch, Impa can definitely hold him there and beat him up and kind of wear on him, make this a gritty fight, which might end up making Edwards lose the decision. So I'm going to go with Edwards here, but I'd like to see him kind of keep this one at range at striking bay. And fairly reasonably confident pick in Edwards if he keeps it striking. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
I actually took Fabian Edwards as well. Same thing. If he can avoid the clinch, that would be great. Kasanganay is a absolute gorilla. You know what I mean? That guy gets you up against the cage. He can control you. He has better control on the ground now, which is great. You know, but he's just he's in the mold. And he does have heavy striking, something that Fabian's going to have to look out for. He does like to stand and trade. Fabian is going to be most likely, I think, the more experienced striker of the two. Like you said, he kind of mimics the look of his brother in the stand-up department. Impa's a tank. He's gotten better with every fight. He's strong. He's athletic. He can take this fight to the ground if he wants to as well. Whereas Fabian is also a warrior on the ground. You know, he can get back up. He's got good submission defense. I mean, I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a good back and forth. But I do see Fabian coming out on top as long as he doesn't make some questionable decisions in the clinch. I think in the clinch is where he should probably separate or look to try to separate and not try to out-grapple him and take him down. I don't know. We've seen him make some decisions that are questionable, but I think he's got this. I'm not going to say it's an easy matchup because it's not. I know you were saying Mads Burnell, that fight could be a fight of the night. I think this could be a very entertaining back and forth.
For sure. And we've seen with Edwards that he struggled against Johnny Eblen, but there's no shame in losing to a guy who's undefeated in Johnny Eblen, heavy wrestling style. I think this could be a great fight as well. I agree with Carlos, but two reasonably confident picks here for Fabian Edwards. And I just wanted to throw this in for you guys at the end. So Khalid was actually supposed to fight Nick Maximoff in the tournament. Nick Maximoff is actually withdrawn. So I do believe that the PFL is probably going to get him a replacement opponent as they want him in the PFL tournament this year. The GroundNPound Podcast will do their best to keep you guys updated throughout the week when we get a little bit more information on his upcoming opponent or his replacement opponent. So keep an eye out for that in the comments. We'll do our best to keep you guys updated on who Carlos and I will pick. We'll leave that in the comments below. So keep an eye out for that. If you do watch this video early, just keep an eye out and see, and we'll try and update you. And I always like to let you guys know what's coming. So coming soon on the GroundNPound Podcast, we have the best bets video for this particular event at the PFL World Tournament, middleweights and lightweights, and keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try and get that one out for you either on Wednesday or Thursday, so keep an eye out for that. And if you're not liking and subscribing the videos, you don't want to miss any of the content, make sure you hit that thumbs up, make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss anything. And before we wrap things up, Carlos, is there anything that you want to say to the people?
All I'd like to say, guys, is we like to bring you the best info that we can on these matchups, so please like and subscribe. That'd be great. And if it's UFC, if it's PFL, trying to get you everything we can every week. PFL, they throw a lot of curveballs in there, so we're struggling. We're doing our best here.
Yep. And we're looking to hit those curveballs out of the park, ladies and gentlemen. But if you haven't already, like Carlos said, hit that like and subscribe button. Stay tuned. Keep an eye out for the next video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.